Either way, we should be live in 3, 2, 1, and I'll just confirm that we are, but I'm pretty sure we are. And yeah, we are live. John, how you doing?
Morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So we have the reason I brought you on, I think, is for a lot of people. We're back outside. The pandemic is quote unquote over, however you want to phrase that. But I think that people are going back to gyms. They're getting back outside, and one of the things that I really missed during the pandemic that really screwed my mental health was working out in other ways than just my bike. I mean, I love my Peloton. It saved me during the pandemic, but you're working with a coach or working with someone who's going to call you on your bullshit, essentially.
Sure.
Is also very beneficial. And I mean, I've known you for almost 20 years now. We were boxing back when you had a gym all the way downtown. And I've seen you train celebrities. I've seen you train, champion boxers. I've seen you train supermodels. So you trained supermodels earlier, like 2 days ago. But one of the things that always struck me is that people tend to come back. It's boxing is one of those things that is not just a workout for your body. It is a workout for your brain. And as I've learned more about my ADHD and about my entrepreneurial ways and about how my brain works, I've discovered just how important that is. So talk about that for a little bit. Why is boxing or exercise in general, but specifically boxing, why is it so important, and why does it do so many great things for your brain as well?
That's a great question. I think it's very important now for people to be able to get back and to a degree of normalcy. We all have a primal instinct for survival, and I always call especially the way that I teach people to box, it's we're appeasing the amygdala, the oldest part of the brain, where we have a deeper sense of peace and calm. We cover our security by having a roof over our head, food, shelter, clothing, but also just that ability to know that I can protect myself, or I could run, fight and flight, that we can do either or. That's very important. The boxing is different because it is a multi-sensory sport and a multi-sensory activity in which we're really, to do it properly, you have to be really centered and present. Most people think it's a fight's over in 20 seconds, a boxing match is a half hour. It's patience, skill, determination. So when you're boxing correctly, you have to notice the feet on the floor, how your hands are tight, what's your breathing, what's your outcome. So that's why I also do so much coaching, is that everyone has to have an outcome. You have to know what you're working on, and you apply all these principles to everyday life as well. That's why I always tell people everything important in life I ever learned was in a boxing gym. And then you also have that communal, the sense of community and communal spirit. You're the person going in the ring, but there's a lot of people in your corner. So a lot of people help you get there. No one does it alone. No one ever does it alone. Boxing is the lonely sport. Entrepreneurship is the lonely sport. There's a lot of bootstrapping, but you need people to help you.
One of the things that you always mention is the concept of not thinking too far forward, right? Don't, I'm guilty of this all the time, in that I try to anticipate the next punch. I have no idea where it's going to come from, but I try to guess, right? And that screws me up because I wind up off balance, or I wind up leaning into it. We do the same thing in entrepreneurship, and especially when we're neurodiverse, we're constantly trying to, it's part of our mindset to try and say, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What can boxing, or what can you tell people? How do you calm down with that? How do you just focus on the now and try to stay present?
You're going to chunk things down so that you know what you're working on, and one round at a time, 3 minutes at a time. You give yourself the task, you accomplish the task, and you go from there. But even when I have people sparring, there's something you need to work on, and that you can't just, it appears that people just, they go through the ropes and they just fight. There's 1,000 things going on there that people don't know, and they don't appreciate it. So you absolutely need that one thing that you're working on. I would say with boxing, it's not the how, it's the why, the when, and the what's next. But you need the initial steps. You need those steps, and then the what's next is important because it leads to the next thing. You set the punch up, you set the combination up. So again, coming back to having the outcome and reminding yourself of what that is, the internal communication is everything. It's everything.
Zach Harris, who's watching on LinkedIn, posted a really great comment. He said, I feel like boxers are really good at making fewer bad decisions faster.
They make them, but they know how to cover them up. So no
Okay.
one's following the script. You just flow. You just have to go with it. The what's next is, so that's the dangerous thing now is everyone goes onto YouTube and they'll watch a technique.
Right.
And they'll know the technique, but the key is the what's next. They'll execute the technique and then they get cracked because they walked right into a punch. Or in the very beginning, it's just a matter of instinct. You need volume. You need to. Then down the road, you will look for certain patterns. You will anticipate. You'll know that body language. But also we get to that flow state of just unconscious. 80% of communication is nonverbal, and we will get to that unconscious process of that flow state. But in the beginning, you have to learn to walk before you run.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point. I think there's I think it was, I don't remember the cartoon, but there's one, I've always kept this in the back of my head. Sucking at something is the first step towards becoming sort of good at something.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And to go into a boxing gym having never done it before, or to go and decide you want to start a new company having never done it before, is probably the scariest moment, right? So people go in the first time, what brings them back? What is the mental thing or the mental difference that certain people have that others don't, that brings them back versus going one and done?
What scares us thrills us. And when you actually extend, you have to experience things. You can think and plan. Everybody needs a business plan, but until you get into it and you see. So I'm an NLP coach. Although I have a few different coaches, but one of the key presuppositions of NLP is there's no mistakes, only feedback. We have the outcome. We take action. We notice the feedback, flexibility of the approach, and we change it to what we set out to accomplish. So to get through the door, it took me at least 10 attempts to get through the door to the Gramercy gym way back in the 1980s, off of Union Square. I was 15 years old. I finally made it up the stairs. My life was never the same again, with the exception of probably the birth of my son. That was one of the best days of my life. I always want everyone to have that first day every day. It's frightening. It's exciting. It's all of these things. And that's important. So when they get in, they do it, they survive, and we are learning and survival machines. And we run back to it.
How do you get people back in after they have a bad day? They lose a fight, they pull a muscle, they do something that tarnishes that feeling they have. I remember, my last company running Harrow 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there were days where I wanted to call the whole thing quits and just shut it down.
Sure.
And I'm really glad I didn't. But what do you tell people? How do people come back after a failure, come back after a mistake?
Anticipate the fact that you will fail and have like a counterpunch. You need everybody loves the Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until you get punched.
Zach just quoted that below us. Yep.
He had a plan B and C and D and E. When you see all those pictures of him with Customato and with Kevin Rooney, discussing, talking, working those scenarios through, that's the part that people don't see. And it just appears of two people punching each other. So going back to this, learning any new skill, unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence. I know where I'm making the mistake. Unconscious competence and mastery. So to get people back in again, you have to remind yourself, I always have this mindset is everything. First thing we do is we focus on what is working. We tell the neurology, this is what's working. This is what we're doing. We're in the right mindset. And then we look at the situation from there. There's a few other ways, but that's key. And you have to remind yourself over and over again. There's every day, opening up a big gym during a pandemic, and it's crazy, but that's what we do, right? Otherwise, and you'll get through it. You will get through it, and there's bad days, and
I've always been of the opinion that unless what I'm about to do lands me in jail or starts an international incident, I'm going to do it. What's the worst that can happen? I'll try something else. I mean, there might be a middle ground there, yeah. But it fails, I'll try something else. And I've always believed in that, and I think that's a lot of my success comes from that.
Yes. And when we have so many, our opponent is our outcome. and we learn so much about ourselves then. And we have, and another presupposition, all the resources you need to succeed you have within you. That resource could be a friend. It could be an old associate. And also asking yourself, I've done this before. What did I do then? Then there are specific steps that you can take. What was I saying to myself then? What was the situation? What did I do in the past when I ran into a challenge? And then asking yourself questions, state change is very important then. How you hold your body, how you breathe, how you then eventually will picture what you see, hear what you hear, you can change those things and you can get through it. And also you work around it. Sometimes you set things to the side and you work on another task or another project while you then you revisit that one later on. Especially with ADD, I have ADHD as well. So it's, you hit the wall and then I use cards. I have all my little index cards. I do something, I rip it up and I throw it out and I go on to the next card. But then you'll pick up and you'll be fresh and you'll run with the next thing. So you decide on those things beforehand.
I love this. I'm going to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much, John. John can be found at Victory Boxing NYC on all the socials and the website. That link below, shank.mn/VS2022, is our virtual summit where John is going to be speaking a lot more about this on November 10th. And it's going to be a phenomenal day. Guys, check it out. We'd love to have you. John, thank you so much for taking the time.
I'll see you soon.
Take care, guys. Bye. Thanks for joining, everyone. Bye-bye.